Crimea is shaking tonight. The Black Sea balance is changing fast. Russian control is cracking under pressure. Ukrainian moves are forcing sudden retreats. What is really happening in Crimea right now? And why does this moment matter to the world? Stay with us. This story changes everything. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are covering a moment that could redefine the Black Sea conflict completely. Crimea is once again at the center of global attention. But this time the signals feel different. Across military channels and satellite imagery reports, pressure is visibly mounting. Russia's long-held grip on Crimea appears weaker than before. Ukrainian operations are expanding carefully but decisively. Naval routes are being challenged. Air defense systems are under constant stress. Logistics lines are no longer secure. This is not about one single battle. It is about sustained pressure across multiple fronts. The Black Sea has always been the lifeline for Crimea. Control of these waters determines supply, movement, and dominance. Recent developments suggest Ukraine understands this perfectly. Strategic strikes are targeting access rather than cities. Psychological pressure is playing a major role. Russian troops are being forced to reposition rapidly. Uncertainty is spreading through command structures. Meanwhile, global observers are watching closely. Any shift in Crimea affects NATO planning and regional trade routes. Energy corridors and food exports are also linked to this region. That is why tonight's situation matters far beyond Ukraine. In this video, we will break down exactly what is happening. We will explain why Crimea is shaking and what this could mean next. To understand the current shock, we must look at how Crimea has been controlled for years. Since 2014, Russia invested heavily in fortifications. Bases were expanded. Ports were militarized. Air defense networks were layered deeply. The Black Sea Fleet became the backbone of control. This setup created an illusion of permanence. But modern warfare changes assumptions quickly. Ukraine adapted its strategy over time. Instead of direct assaults, pressure points were identified. Supply routes became targets. Radar systems faced constant probing. Naval dominance was challenged using asymmetric methods. Drones changed the battlefield geometry. Missiles forced fleets to relocate. Suddenly, static defenses felt vulnerable. Crimea relies heavily on uninterrupted supply flow. Fuel, ammunition, and food must arrive constantly. When routes become risky, morale declines fast. Recent weeks show exactly this pattern. Ships avoid predictable paths. Aircraft operate more cautiously. Commanders hesitate under uncertainty. This is not collapse yet, but cracks are clearly visible. Control does not vanish overnight. It erodes step by step. Ukraine's approach focuses on erosion. Each move increases pressure without overextension. That is why analysts say Crimea is shaking. The Black Sea itself is the true battlefield in this phase. Whoever controls it controls Crimea's survival. Ukraine understands that full naval dominance is not required. Disruption alone can be enough. Recent operations show precise timing and coordination. Russian vessels now operate under constant threat. Ports once considered safe are no longer guaranteed. Every movement requires calculation. This slows response times dramatically. Ukraine's use of maritime drones changed expectations. Low-cost tools now threaten high-value assets. This forces defensive spending upward. At the same time, offensive freedom shrinks. Satellite tracking exposes patterns quickly. Once patterns are known, pressure follows. The psychological effect is powerful. Crews operate under stress. Command decisions become conservative. That alone shifts momentum. Meanwhile, Ukraine maintains ambiguity intentionally. Exact capabilities remain unclear. That uncertainty multiplies fear. Black Sea routes support more than military logistics. They also support trade and energy flows. Any instability here affects global markets. Insurance costs rise instantly. Shipping lanes adjust rapidly. This adds international pressure. Russia must now defend multiple interests simultaneously. That stretches resources thin. This is why control is cracking rather than breaking suddenly. Another key factor is airspace pressure over Crimea. Air superiority once felt secure. That confidence has faded. Ukraine's air defense strategy evolved steadily. Missile coverage is now layered and adaptive. Russian aircraft face higher risk profiles. Flights occur at greater distances. Precision is reduced as a result. This impacts ground support directly. Radar installations are under constant threat. Once radar coverage weakens, response times slow. This creates exploitable gaps. Ukraine does not need full air dominance. Temporary denial is enough. Short windows allow strikes and withdrawals. These tactics confuse defenders. Command centers must constantly relocate. This increases fatigue among personnel. Logistics planning becomes reactive rather than proactive. Crimea's geography amplifies these effects. Limited entry points restrict flexibility. When airspace becomes contested, every route matters. Fuel consumption increases. Maintenance cycles shorten. Operational tempo suffers. Over time, this pressure accumulates. Small failures compound into systemic strain. This is what analysts mean by cracking control. It is structural stress, not sudden defeat. Understanding this distinction is critical for realistic analysis. Information warfare also plays a silent but decisive role. Narratives shape morale on both sides. Ukraine communicates confidence and momentum. Russia attempts reassurance and control. However, inconsistencies appear quickly. Footage emerges faster than statements. Satellite images contradict official claims. This erodes trust internally. Troops rely heavily on accurate information. When clarity disappears, hesitation grows. Families at home follow developments closely. Public perception influences political decisions. Ukraine leverages transparency strategically. Selective releases maintain credibility. This strengthens international support. Meanwhile, Russian messaging faces skepticism. Conflicting reports create confusion. Confusion weakens resolve. Social platforms amplify uncertainty rapidly. Small incidents gain global visibility. This magnifies pressure beyond the battlefield. Commanders must consider optics alongside tactics. Every loss becomes symbolic. Every retreat feels larger than it is. This environment favors agile operations. Ukraine benefits from faster narrative cycles. Russia struggles with centralized messaging. This imbalance contributes to instability. Control depends on belief as much as force. When belief weakens, cracks spread faster than expected. International reactions further intensify the situation. NATO monitors developments continuously. Intelligence sharing increases situational awareness. Allies analyze each movement carefully. Any escalation risk is calculated. Ukraine benefits from diplomatic momentum. Support remains tied to perceived effectiveness. Recent actions reinforce confidence. This encourages sustained assistance. Russia faces growing isolation pressures. Economic strain limits flexibility. Military resources compete with domestic priorities. Sanctions restrict rapid replenishment. This affects long-term sustainability. Crimea requires constant investment. Every disruption increases cost. Foreign policy calculations now intersect with battlefield realities. Miscalculations carry global consequences. That increases caution at higher levels. Caution slows response times. Ukraine exploits these delays strategically. Time becomes a weapon. Each week of pressure matters. Meanwhile, regional actors adjust quietly. Shipping routes adapt. Energy planning shifts. Insurance markets respond immediately. These secondary effects amplify primary pressure. Control weakens not only militarily but economically. This multidimensional strain defines the current phase. Morale inside Crimea is another critical variable. Civilian perception shapes stability. Uncertainty affects daily life. Transportation disruptions create anxiety. Supply delays increase frustration. Rumors spread quickly in tense environments. Authorities attempt reassurance. However, visible changes undermine confidence. Increased checkpoints signal concern. Restricted movement raises questions. Local economies feel pressure. Tourism declines rapidly under instability. Businesses delay investment decisions. This compounds economic strain. Military presence becomes more noticeable. That visibility reminds civilians of risk. Ukraine does not target civilians intentionally, but pressure inevitably affects normal routines. This creates psychological fatigue. Over time, fatigue influences compliance. History shows prolonged uncertainty erodes control. Crimea is no exception. Information leaks accelerate perception shifts. People adapt behavior cautiously. That adaptation signals loss of confidence. Control relies on predictability. When predictability fades, authority weakens. This environment favors negotiated outcomes eventually. But first, pressure must remain consistent. Ukraine appears committed to sustained operations. From a strategic perspective, patience is central. Rapid victories are rare in modern conflicts. Incremental gains matter more. Ukraine's approach reflects this understanding. Each operation tests defenses carefully. Lessons are applied immediately. Adaptation cycles shorten. Russia faces longer decision chains. This asymmetry favors flexible actors. Technology accelerates feedback loops. Drone footage provides instant evaluation. Adjustments follow within hours. Traditional command structures struggle to keep pace. This widens the effectiveness gap. Crimea's defenses were designed for earlier doctrines. Modern threats bypass assumptions. Fixed assets face mobile dangers. Redundancy becomes expensive. Maintenance burdens grow. Human fatigue increases error rates. Errors invite exploitation. Ukraine avoids overcommitment intentionally. Risk management remains disciplined. This sustains momentum over time. Analysts observe a pattern of controlled escalation. Pressure increases without crossing thresholds. This complicates response options. Russia must defend broadly. Broad defense dilutes strength. That dilution accelerates cracking control structures. Looking ahead, several scenarios remain possible. No outcome is guaranteed. Control could stabilize temporarily. Negotiations could intensify, or pressure could expand further. Much depends on external variables. Weather affects naval operations significantly. Resource availability shapes operational tempo. Political calculations influence risk tolerance. Ukraine's objective appears focused. Sustained pressure without reckless escalation. This preserves international backing. Russia may adapt defenses gradually. New tactics could emerge. However, adaptation requires time. Time currently favors Ukraine. Each delay compounds vulnerability. The Black Sea remains contested. That contest alone limits freedom of action. Crimea's strategic value ensures continued focus. Neither side can ignore it. Global attention will persist. Markets will react accordingly. Security planning will evolve. This phase represents transformation, not conclusion. Understanding that prevents misinformation. Extreme claims obscure real dynamics. Reality is more complex and more dangerous. Control cracking does not mean collapse. But cracks, once formed, rarely disappear completely. In conclusion, Crimea's shaking reflects accumulated pressure, not sudden defeat. Ukraine's strategy emphasizes disruption over destruction. This approach limits risk while maximizing impact. The Black Sea remains central to this equation. Control there determines Crimea's viability. Recent developments suggest sustained imbalance. Russia must defend multiple dimensions simultaneously. Military, economic, informational, and psychological. That complexity strains even strong systems. Ukraine exploits asymmetry effectively. Small tools generate large effects. Narratives amplify tactical outcomes. International reactions reinforce momentum. Civilian perception shapes internal stability. All these layers interact continuously. That interaction produces cracking control structures. Understanding nuance is essential for accurate analysis. Sensational claims miss deeper realities. This situation will continue evolving. Outcomes depend on discipline and patience. The coming weeks are critical. Signals from the Black Sea will matter most. Airspace pressure will remain decisive. Information control will influence morale. Economic effects will expand quietly. Each factor feeds the next. That cycle defines modern conflict. We will continue monitoring closely. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis valuable, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. Stay informed. Stay analytical.